A brand new trade update has dropped this morning as many people are calling for the Bruins to jump in on a very interesting player. We're going to be breaking this down, going over why this may not be the best decision, as well as a brand new update regarding Michael DiPietro, and a very credible article saying that he should be traded from another team. We're going to be breaking all this down here today. As you can definitely tell, we're in the middle of the offseason. Before we do jump into it, though, be sure to go hit the sub button first of all, but of course, as you know, the summer is a very busy time. You guys may not be able to sit down and watch these videos, but we're on Spotify, we're on Apple Podcasts, wherever you do get your podcast. Be sure to go give us a follow so you can watch us on the go and stay up to date with all of your Boston Bruins news. But we need to jump straight into this here. First of all, going over the Yegor Chinakhov kind of situation that's undergoing. And this morning, his agent tweeted this out going over, Yegor Chinakhov, I had some misunderstanding with the coach during the season, and now I would be glad to have a trade. I would like to move to a different location. Will I return to Russia? As long as I can play in the NHL, I will keep developing here. This is what his agent put out this morning, revealing a lot of interesting names that are coming out and different teams coming out to be suitors for Yegor. Now, when we're looking at Yegor as a player, he's definitely a very interesting one. He's a younger player who has been kind of in that Russia system, as we saw many players be, and now coming over to the NHL, being over here for a few years, we get to now know the player he is, and requesting a trade. There are many teams who are interested in a guy like Yegor Chinakhov, and taking a look at his stats before we do jump into where the Bruins fit with him, he's a pretty up-and-down player throughout the AHL and the NHL over the past few seasons, has mainly spent his time in the NHL, however, and he's been, a decent player for what he's been doing. 30 games this year, 15 points, half point per game. Going the previous year, 53-29. It's pretty much of a trend of being a decent player, kind of middle six, bottom six player, and this is where a lot of people are calling for the Bruins to go and try and get a guy like him. Now, he's a very good player. I think there's no doubt about that. I don't think his point total really shows how good he is and where he currently stands, but at 24 years old, as a right winger who is a pretty decent goal scorer when on and when playing with the right line. And as you see there in 23-24 with Columbus, 16 goals, 13 assists in 53 games. He stayed pretty solid throughout the entire season. Now, going into where the Bruins currently stand with him, a lot of people are calling for the Bruins to go and add a guy like this due to how cheap he is, how much of a risk kind of free player he is. But where he currently stands is one issue for the Boston Bruins, as he's another middle six, kind of bottom six type player. And right now, as you see on the JFresh chart right here, they have him listed as a time on ice going to and correlating with a third liner. Now, currently at $2.1 million for 2 more years. It's a very solid deal to be able to kind of get a guy like this. It's a really risk-free contract at 23 years old. Doing what he's done already, as you see, 88 percentile on goals, 84 in finishing, 48 on offense, not great, 60 on defense really isn't bad, and just a pretty solid playmaker overall. A little bit of power play time, not too much and not great there, and a big drop-off, I guess, from 23-24 to this year. It is a big jump that a lot of teams are going to be willing to take. However, when you compare this third line time on ice to the Bruins and where they currently stand on all of this, it really is a major risk to run when you're looking at this lineup and how many bottom six players we have. Yegor Chinakhov kind of stands as one of these players who doesn't really fit in with the Sean Corrali, Mark Hasek, Mikey Eyssimont type of player. He's younger than them. He kind of fits in with more so of the Fraser Mitten, Matt Poitras, Fabian Lysell type of player where they wouldn't really crack the lineup right now. So I do understand the want and the kind of the desire for a lot of players, a lot of people calling for the Bruins to get a player like Yegor Chinakhov. However, right now, where he currently stands, and although he may be a top six talent, he hasn't shown that yet, and the risk for the Bruins is a bit too high to be able to run with that. So it is a decent, kind of idea, I guess, and as we say, he's requesting a trade. One could work out that the Bruins trade a few bottom six players and kind of just a swap for players, and then maybe you throw a pick in there. That wouldn't be a terrible idea to get rid of a few of the bottom six players the Bruins have. However, it kind of leaves you still in the dust there, that there wouldn't be enough room for everybody here in this bottom six, or even I would even say the second line as well, to be able to make it work. So I want to know what you guys think about Yegor Chinakhov. I don't hate the idea of a trade, but it really just seems that the Bruins would need to make more and more moves to be able to make it work. And we've seen from Don Sweeney that they seem to be done with everything they're going towards here in this season. Now, I also want to throw in as well here, just before we move on to the Michael DiPietro stuff, that when I spoke about yesterday's schedule release, I missed a major part of this, and Ty Anderson really put this out here and got a bit of traction that I wanted to pull up as well. The Bruins will play the Panthers in October, then won't play them again for another 102 days, and they won't see them for another 57 days after the second showdown. Just hilariously bad scheduling given the rivalry, in quotes, playoff format they insist on forcing on us. And I agree with this, of course, not just this as well, but the Brad Marchand not having them kind of return to Boston and having that, they'll of course have it in October, and that's probably going to what they're thinking is the earliest. But still, the whole situation where the rivalry they're kind of pushing on us, Brad Marchand being on this team now, where the team currently stands, it is kind of crazy that they don't have a few games earlier on. Of course, meeting once in Florida, once in Boston earlier, and then having just, 159-day wait pretty much between the first and the final matchup between these two teams. But I do want to move on to, of course, another interesting look here, and this one comes from Jeff Merrick, going out about, and I know I said a bit incredible, Jeff Merrick, when it comes down to this, is a bit of a reporter that kind of speculates, but this is one that we've seen quite a bit here, and this is a very interesting one coming from the Edmonton Oilers perspective. He says, Merrick's comparison of the Michael DiPietro situation in Boston to Sielov's in Vancouver raises questions about what it would take for the Oilers to bring in the 26-year-old netminder from the Bruins. And if Sielov's trade is any indication, the deal might not be as expensive for the Oilers as one might think. Sielov's cost the Penguins a depth player and a mid-round pick. That's something the Oilers can certainly muster from Michael DiPietro. And coming out about this, going over a trade that Michael DiPietro will be sent to the Edmonton Oilers, and the Edmonton Oilers looking for another goaltender, is something that we really did not expect to see. Of course, we saw the whole Swayman kind of idea that they have. Maybe Joonas Korpisalo could be something from the Bruins side of things. They seem to be poaching any goalie that the Bruins currently have. And coming out with this and looking at the depth chart, of course, we signed Michael DiPietro for a reason. Obviously looking at him as a goaltender that you're signing to a one-way deal and throwing him in the AHL is not something that we want to run with. We want him in the NHL. However, if it's a 3-goalie situation, will they do that? Are they comfortable doing that? Is Joonas Korpisalo going to be traded? Certainly seems like it's not going to happen after he said that he didn't really want to trade, even though he said last year that he wanted to play more. It's just a really big situation right now that the Bruins need to figure out before the season starts if they don't want a repeat of what happened with Jeremy Swayman last season. Now, of course, if you're Jeremy Swayman, that situation is, it is a bit over-exaggerated, I think, that he needed to put it out in the public, but that is done now. Of course, that was a bigger situation than this is, and a 3-goalie rotation is something that we don't really want to have to do with how much we're paying Joonas Korpisalo and Jeremy Swayman. Of course, Swayman should be this guy that's playing 55 games, and having Michael DiPietro here, it shows that the Bruins want him, and of course, giving him up for nothing was something that they did not want to do in free agency, and I think that's a big part of the extension as well, but could they have signed him to ultimately end up trading him so they get a bit of value in return? That is a possibility, but I think that they want to go and at least see him in NHL action before they do something like that, and that's why the point of the signing was kind of a bit of an interesting situation that a lot of people were thinking for the Boston Bruins. Now, Jeff Merrick kind of said this as well in this article. If you're going to make a move for a goaltender, don't wait till the trade deadline to make that move. And that was the first thing he really said in the article about the Edmonton Oilers, that if they're going to make a move for a goaltender, do it now. There's no point in waiting, and that's why the links with Michael DiPietro are there. It is an Arthur Sielov situation, and I think that's something that a lot of Bruins fans, I wouldn't say necessarily hate, necessarily love either, but it is a pretty decent return that you would get in value for a guy like Michael DiPietro, who ultimately is a very good goalie, of course, that we saw what he did over the past few seasons in the AHL, but going on and taking a look at what they received in return, the Vancouver Canucks got Chase Stillman. Of course, that's a depth player. The Bruins would not want another one of those. And a mid-round pick, still not ideal there in that sense, either getting rid of Michael DiPietro and as good as what he could be in the NHL. Of course, we're still yet to see. It causes a lot of interesting options here for the Bruins with the goaltending situation once again. They're going to run 3 goalies, or they're going to get rid of someone. It's still yet to be determined. It's a long offseason, and we know the Oilers are probably going to be in conversation with all 3 of the goalies again because they love to poach our players. But let me know what you think about the news that we have here today, of course. I think these are some genuinely insane trades. Yegor Chinakhov, I like him. Don't really make sense. Michael DiPietro, I can see where people think it makes sense, but I don't think it's late enough yet. I think that he still has a lot of potential, and I want to see him in the NHL. And honestly, Joonas Korpisalo, he's making too much money. We got to get him out. But let me know what you think about all the news that we have here today. But that's all I have in this video. If you did enjoy, give it a like, hit the sub button as well. I'm signing out, though. Thank you for watching. Hope you have a great day. See you later.